My name's Maddie Ellis. I'm 32 years old, and I run a luxury adventure tourism company called Mountain Crest Charters. But that's not how my family sees me. See, to them, I'm still that dreamer, that one who couldn't follow the straight and narrow. I'm the one who dropped out of college to chase a foolish idea about private mountain retreats and ski excursions. They've never really understood, not fully. My brother Ethan, my perfect older brother, the one who followed all the rules and still lives in the world of conventional success, investment banker at Harper Finance, the whole suit and tie thing. He married Stephanie the beauty queen with a marketing degree, and they make the perfect little power couple. Then there's Megan, my older sister, who took the doctor route. She's got to practice a house in the suburbs, and kids that would make anyone proud. And then there's me, Maddie, the one who even now gets that side eye whenever I walk into family gatherings. Not that they say it, but I can see it. The polite disappointment. The way they talk about me like I'm still in the early stages of figuring life out. I built a business. I took a chance. I made something out of nothing. But I've never let on that it's worth over $1 billion now. They don't know that. They never asked. Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I always love hearing from you guys. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. I grew up in a household where success wasn't just encouraged, it was demanded. Success wasn't an option, it was expected. You met the standard or you failed. Period. Dad especially would remind us of that often. He had this way of setting the bar impossibly high. The Mitchells don't do mediocrity, he'd say, his voice always carrying that stern edge. And by Mitchells, he meant Ethan and Megan. Me, I was always the outlier, the odd one. My decisions were treated like tragedies. Dropping out of college to start a business was treated like a personal failure. They never thought it was the right move. For them, success had a very specific shape. But my path was different, and I knew from the start I was never going to fit into their mold. Ethan was everything they wanted him to be. Straight A's, always the top of his class, captain of the debate team, Harvard Business School, and then straight into the high-rise world of investment banking. By 30, he was the golden boy, a made man in the eyes of my parents, and of course they showed him off to everyone. I always knew he was the one they saw as the real success. He had all the titles, the degrees, the pedigree. And when they spoke of him, they spoke with pride. It was as if they lived vicariously through him, basking in the reflection of his accomplishments. Megan, my older sister by 2 years, was no different. She walked the path my parents laid out for her, straight to medical school, graduating top of her class, and eventually landing a prestigious job at one of the top hospitals in Denver. Married to Richard, a surgeon who checked all the boxes. She had it, all: the perfect career, the perfect house, the perfect family. 2 beautiful kids, a nice house in the suburbs, the very image of a successful life. And then there was me, stubborn, rebellious, the one who wouldn't play by their rules. I remember it so clearly the day I told them I was leaving school. They didn't understand. "You're throwing everything away," my dad said, pacing in the living room, his voice thick with disappointment. "You've got this great opportunity here. Why can't you just do things the right way?" And my mom, her face tight with worry, could only repeat her usual line, "You've always been different, Maddie." But that's the thing, right? Being different in my family was never celebrated. They saw it as a flaw, a defect. So I kept my dreams to myself. I never told them about the late nights I spent coding and sketching out ideas. They wouldn't understand. They didn't want to understand. So I didn't try to explain. I just did. And I built it. Quietly. Determinedly. Every rejection, every "you can't do this," was just fuel for the fire inside me. What they didn't know, and still don't know, is that I was building something huge, something that was going to change everything. I dropped out of college during my junior year. It wasn't that I didn't see the value in education, I did. But I had this vision, this dream, that consumed me, and I couldn't sit in classrooms anymore pretending it wasn't there. I had an idea for a platform that would revolutionize luxury adventure tourism. It wasn't just about chartering a yacht or booking a ski trip. No, it was about crafting experiences, customized, tailored, and perfectly curated to fit every client's dream. It was something that didn't exist in the market, not in the way I saw it. And I knew that if I didn't go after it, I'd spend my whole life wondering what could have been. But that wasn't how my family saw it. A hobby business is what they called it, especially after I had the nerve to tell them I was walking away from my full scholarship. Ethan told me it was risky. No, he told me it was reckless. He was right in a way. The tech industry was competitive, and I didn't have connections money or a fancy degree to back me up. But I had grit, and I had the vision to make it work. I also had a stubborn streak that my family had never really understood. So I ignored the doubt in their voices, the subtle jabs, the way they treated my dream like a phase, like I was just a kid playing at being an adult. I built Mountain Crest Charters from the ground up, piece by piece. I remember the sleepless nights, the frustration, the constant second-guessing. But I also remember the victories, the first client who trusted me enough to book one of our mountain retreats, the moment when I secured a partnership with an exclusive resort in the Rockies. These were small wins, but they felt huge. They felt like the first signs that my dream was becoming something real, something bigger than the rejection I faced at home. But of course, I didn't share any of that with my family. They didn't ask. They didn't care to know. At every family gathering, when I'd see them all talking about their work, Ethan's latest merger or Megan's new promotion there, I was standing on the sidelines, listening, always the outlier, the one who didn't fit their image of success. And they made sure I knew it. Still working on that Yacht app, my dad would ask, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the judgment in his voice. No one understood the scale of what I was building. No one saw the hours of hard work I put into it. But that was okay. I didn't need them to. I wasn't doing it for them. I was doing it for me. It was a quiet kind of success in the beginning. I wasn't ready to flaunt it. I didn't have time to explain, not when there were investors to pitch coding bugs to fix and clients to win over. I spent my days at the computer, and my nights answering emails, attending networking events, pitching to anyone who would listen. Slowly, the pieces started to fall into place. Mountain Crest Charters started to get traction. Nothing huge, nothing that would make the news, but steady growth. Word of mouth in the luxury travel community started to spread, and we gained repeat clients. Each charter was a small victory. Each experience designed exactly as envisioned felt like another confirmation that I was on the right path. But despite all that, the family remained unchanged. They still saw me as the dreamer, the one who couldn't stick with the traditional route. Every holiday gathering, every birthday, every family reunion was a reminder of how they viewed me. They spoke in a language of achievements, graduations, job promotions, investments, and I was still stuck in the place of potential. "It's going well," I guess my mom would say, eyes scanning over me like I was still a project under construction. And Ethan, he was always polite, but there was an air of superiority when he'd mention his latest bonus or the new apartment he and Stephanie had bought in the city. What they didn't know, what they still didn't know, was that my company had secured its first round of major funding. $5 million in venture capital. The kind of money that could change everything. 6 months later, we were expanding internationally. A year after that, we acquired our first competitor. And every time I got an email about our next step, our next move, I couldn't help but think about how little they knew, how little they cared. I didn't correct them. I didn't try to change their minds, not at first. But as Mountain Crest grew, I started to realize something important. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their approval. I had already proven it to myself. And that was enough. But somewhere deep inside, I knew there was one last hurdle. The moment when I would finally have to show them. Show them what I had built. Show them that I had not just succeeded. I had done it on my own terms in my own way. Every year, like clockwork, my family gathers for the annual Mitchell Family Retreat. It's a big deal for them, a chance to show off their lives, to celebrate the very success they've been cultivating their whole lives. Usually, it's just another excuse for them to one-up each other, to talk about the next step in their carefully constructed world of achievement. This year, I wasn't expecting an invitation. In fact, I almost forgot about it. But then the text came through. Marcus. Ethan. The golden child himself, with a special announcement. He'd outdone himself this time, he said. This year's family gathering was going to be an exclusive luxury cruise in the Caribbean. A celebration of Mitchell family excellence, he called it. Of course, excellence meant everyone who had made something of themselves, his words not mine. And me, I hadn't been invited. I wasn't on the list of achievers. I wasn't surprised. I'd been excluded from family events before, but this time felt different. The exclusion stung a little more than it had in the past. Maybe it was because this year I knew how far I'd come. I had a company valued at over $1 billion now. I owned a yacht that could sail circles around anything Ethan could afford. But none of that mattered to them. To Ethan, I was still the one who had dropped out and didn't fit into their version of success. What I didn't tell anyone, what no one knew, was that Ethan, in his grand gesture, had booked Mountain Crest charters for the yacht cruise. He didn't even realize he was booking the very company that I had built from scratch. Of course, he had no idea that the yacht he was about to board was mine, or that the company he was using was mine too. I could already imagine his smug little grin as he bragged about his connections to the family, gloating over what he had arranged. As the days passed and the trip grew closer, the thought of them sailing off into the sunset without me started to wear on me. But instead of feeling defeated, I found myself feeling something else. An idea began to form in my mind. This cruise was my opportunity. It was time to reveal the truth. So I made my plans. It was a Tuesday when I got the call. Ethan's name flashed across my screen while I was in a meeting with a potential investor from Dubai. I didn't answer immediately, but the phone buzzed again, then again. I slid it face down on the conference table. Eventually, I excused myself and went to my office. The moment I picked up, I could already hear the superiority in his voice. "Hey, Maddie?" he said as if we were old friends catching up, "just wanted to run something by you real quick." His tone was smooth, but there was an edge, the kind of edge that came from years of being the family's chosen one. "What's up?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. He didn't waste any time. "So this year's family retreat, as you know, is on a luxury yacht. It's going to be a week in the Caribbean first class, all the way Maddie. The whole Mitchell clan's going to be there. I've arranged it all. We're going with Luxury Waters, an exclusive company. They're supposed to be the best in the business." "Luxury Waters," I asked, my pulse quickening despite myself. "Yeah, you know the yacht charter company. I don't expect you to know much about them," he said, his voice taking on that condescending edge. "But anyway, I've got the dates locked down for everyone. June 15th through 22nd. I'm sure you understand, Maddie, but this is a celebration of real success. Those of us who've, made something of ourselves." It was as if the words didn't sting anymore. I just felt tired. I'd heard it all before. His self-satisfaction, his inability to see anything outside his own narrow vision of success. "I see," I said, my voice steady. "So who's invited?" "Everyone, of course," Ethan replied. "Except, well, we thought it would be a bit awkward if you came. This cruise is for people who've really earned it, Not everyone would appreciate the luxury. Anyway, don't take it personally, okay? Maybe next year if your boat website thing takes off." I felt a rush of heat to my face, but I didn't let it show. I wasn't surprised. He never was one to hide his thoughts. But hearing him so casually dismiss me again, it pushed me over the edge. My mind was racing with the possibilities. I needed to show them. Not to get back at them. No, this wasn't about revenge. It was about recognition. I forced a laugh. "Luxury Waters, huh? Interesting choice. Thanks for the heads up." Ethan seemed pleased that I wasn't pushing back. "Yeah, I figured you'd understand. Anyway, I'll send over the details. Don't worry about it, Maddie. We'll catch up when we're back. Dinner on me, right?" He hung up without waiting for my response. I sat back in my chair, staring out the window of my office. My yacht, the one they thought they were chartering, was docked below waiting. It was time. This was my moment. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the idea that had planted itself in my mind. I could let them go on believing I was still the dreamer, who never made it, still the failure in their eyes. But part of me knew I couldn't keep doing that. Not anymore. This cruise, the very thing they thought would mark their superior success, was the perfect opportunity for me to show them exactly how wrong they were about me. It wasn't about proving anything to them, really. No, that wasn't it. It was about proving it to myself for once and for all. I'd spent so many years silently building something, and now it was time to let them see it. To see that I had succeeded in ways they would never understand, because their idea of success was so limited. I began putting my plan in motion. I called Captain Liam Reynolds, the one person who'd been with me since the very beginning, helping me run my charters. I could already hear his British accent crackling through the line when he picked up. "Good afternoon, Miss Ellis. What can I do for you?" "Captain," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're going to get a booking request soon from my brother. Don't let him know it's me. Let him think the yacht is just another luxury charter. But when they board, I want them to know who's really in charge. Do you understand?" There was a pause, and then he chuckled lightly. "I understand perfectly, Miss Ellis. You want to give them a proper welcome, I presume?" "I want them to realize exactly what they've been dismissing all these years." I replied, a hint of something cold creeping into my tone. "When they see me walking onto that yacht, I want them to see it for what it is, mine. Let them book the damn thing. But when they step foot on board, I want them to know who the real owner is." "Understood," Captain Reynolds said, his voice calm, but with a touch of amusement. "I'll ensure that your grand entrance is nothing short of memorable." That was when the excitement really hit me. I wasn't just doing this for revenge. I was doing it for the release, for the chance to step out of the shadows of their expectations. I wasn't some failure anymore. I had built an empire. A quiet empire, yes, but one that now demanded respect. I felt my heart race a little faster as the date approached. The idea of seeing their faces watching their realization, it gave me a rush I hadn't anticipated. But then there were the doubts. Was I being petty? Was this the right way to do this? Should I just let it go? Let them sail off into their perfect little bubble of achievement, while I stayed back in the background, quietly building my empire. But no, that wasn't my reality anymore. And I had to let them know. I had to make them see me. Really see me. I began preparing myself for the reveal. I wasn't going to be flashy about it. This wasn't about showing off, it was about letting them understand the scale of what I had built. I wasn't going to walk in there in a suit dripping with gold, making some grand speech about how I'd made it. No. I was going to show them the yacht, show them my staff, and let them feel the weight of their ignorance all these years. This was my moment. The day had finally arrived. I could feel the anticipation swirling inside me, tightening my chest with excitement and nerves. I stood at the edge of the dock, watching the Sapphire Dream, the yacht I had spent so many years dreaming about, sway gently in the water. It gleamed under the sun, its sapphire blue hull catching the light in a way that almost made it look unreal, like something out of a dream. A dream I had made real while they all slept on their comfortable assumptions. I had spent months planning this moment, choosing the perfect outfit, making sure everything was in place, rehearsing the lines in my head that I would say when I finally faced them. I couldn't stop thinking about the look on their faces when they realized what they'd done, how they'd spent all this time looking down on me, and now they'd be standing in the middle of the life I had built with my own hands. Captain Reynolds had already texted me when the first family members arrived. I was keeping my distance for now, observing from behind a pillar on the dock as they began to gather. It felt almost surreal to watch them all arrive, eager, unaware, and full of self-congratulation. Aunt Patricia and Uncle George were the first ones to show up, their designer luggage in tow. They walked toward the yacht with that same air of entitlement, and for a moment it almost felt like I should just let them get on, let them sail away into their little bubble of achievement. But that wouldn't be right. They needed to see the truth. They needed to see me. More family members trickled in, my sister Megan and her husband Richard, all smiles as they snapped photos of their kids running around. Each new arrival felt like a beat in a song I had been waiting to play for years. Every smile, every laugh, every assumption they made about the successful family gathering, it all felt like the final crescendo before the reveal. Then I saw him, Ethan, pulling up in his Porsche as usual, Stephanie by his side, their polished, perfect selves. He was the one who'd orchestrated this event, the one who had decided who belonged and who didn't. As he walked toward the gathering family members, all I could do was stand still and watch. The man who had judged my every move, dismissed every dream, and called me a failure without saying it outright. This was the moment he would see just how wrong he had been. I let them all board the yacht first, keeping myself hidden just out of sight. The crew was waiting ready for the performance I had been planning. The yacht was prepared for its guests, but they didn't know who the real guest of honor was yet. I wasn't just going to show up for the reveal. I was going to make them wait for it. Captain Reynolds approached me as I stepped closer to the gangway. His eyes twinkled with amusement. "Everything is in place, Ms. Ellis, just as you planned." I nodded, my heart racing, but my steps sure. Make sure they've all boarded, Captain. Then let them have it." He smiled and gave a small bow. "Of course, Miss Ellis. Consider it done." As I waited, I allowed myself a moment to breathe, to gather my thoughts. Was this petty, maybe? But I didn't care anymore. This wasn't about getting back at them. It was about making them see the truth. I could hear the clinking of glasses and the faint hum of laughter from on board. I could picture them already telling stories of their so-called successes. I was about to step into that space and turn everything they thought they knew upside down. And when the moment came, when I walked toward them, I could feel the power in my own body, the certainty that they would finally see me for who I really was. This wasn't about approval anymore. It was about stepping into my own power, owning what I had built, and demanding that they recognize it. I took a deep breath and began to walk toward the gangway. The moment I stepped into their line of sight, the world seemed to slow down. I felt their eyes shift from their conversations, their smiles fading as they all turned in my direction. For a split second, no one spoke. It was as though the very air around us had thickened, charged with anticipation. Cousin Jeffrey was the first to notice me. His champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. Then Aunt Patricia, whose eyes widened comically, almost dropping her clutch. The silence spread like a ripple across the deck, and the conversation slowly died down. Even the background noise of the waves seemed to fade. Ethan was still talking to a couple of relatives, gesturing animatedly, as usual, unaware of the shift in energy. But then he turned around. And for the first time in years, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't judgment or superiority. It was confusion. Wasn't else? My mother's voice was tentative, as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer her right away. Instead, I let my footsteps echo on the wooden deck as I continued walking slowly, deliberately toward them. I could feel the weight of their eyes on me, and a strange mix of excitement and calm settled over me. This was it. The moment I'd been quietly preparing for. Ethan was the first to step forward, his face already morphing into that well-practiced mask of condescension. He put himself in between me and the yacht, like some kind of barrier, his posture defensive. "Rosa!" he said, his voice tight with irritation. "This is unexpected. This isn't really your scene. You don't belong here. This is about celebrating success." I stopped in my tracks just a few feet away from him and folded my arms across my chest. His words stung, of course, but in a strange way, they only strengthened my resolve. "Really?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Because I think you'll find that it's exactly my scene." The tension in the air was palpable, but I kept my voice steady. My father, standing behind Ethan, was already looking uncomfortable. He shifted his weight, his hands clasped behind his back, as if trying to gather some courage. "Rosa!" He started, his tone not as sharp as usual. "Look, your brother went to a lot of trouble to arrange this cruise. Maybe you could respect his decision. It's not personal, but this is about family, about our achievements." I smiled, though it didn't feel like a smile at all. "Family, huh? Funny. Because it seems like the only thing that matters to you is who fits into your narrow definition of success." My mother stepped forward now, a hand on her chest, and her voice soft and uncertain. "We've always known you were smart, Rosa. We just didn't understand." Her words faltered, and she stopped, not sure how to finish. "You didn't understand, Mom?" I asked, my tone biting. "Or you just didn't care to? You didn't ask? You didn't want to know? You couldn't see past your own idea of what success looked like?" I could feel the heat rising in my chest as the words tumbled out. Years of being dismissed, years of silently building this empire, waiting for the moment when they'd finally see what I had done. It was all coming to the surface now. Ethan took a step back, the muscles in his jaw tightening. He opened his mouth to speak, but I cut him off. "You were so focused on your achievements. You never noticed the quiet one, the one you looked down on, the one who built this. This yacht," I motioned toward the Sapphire Dream, its massive presence looming behind me. "This is mine. And that company you think you know, Luxury Waters, the one you just arranged the charter with, mine. I built it from nothing." I waited for the disbelief to settle on their faces, and it didn't take long. My dad's jaw dropped. My mother's eyes were wide. And Ethan? Ethan's face shifted from confusion to something else, something I hadn't seen in him in years' realization. "What did you just say?" he managed to stammer, as if the words couldn't quite reach him. You own this yacht. Yes, Ethan, I own this yacht. And Luxury Waters, the one you thought you were chartering. That's my company. I built it. Not with your connections or your old school success. I built it with my vision, my sweat, my hours of work and rejection. And now I took a deep breath. I'm standing here in front of you, not as your failure, but as the one who made something real. The crew who had been silently observing seemed to shift into action. Captain Reynolds, who had been watching from the gangway, stepped forward, his posture impeccable as always. Welcome aboard, Ms. Ellis. He turned to address my family, a small but purposeful smile on his face. The yacht, the Sapphire Dream, is at your service. The finality of his words hit the family like a brick wall. The truth was undeniable now. There was no escaping it. I wasn't the failure they had assumed I was. I was their success, just not in the way they had expected. The silence that followed Captain Reynolds' words felt like it lasted an eternity. The realization settled in slowly, like a tide creeping in over the shore. One by one, my family turned to look at me, their expressions shifting from confusion to shock, to something else entirely, maybe even a little fear. My mother was the first to recover. She stepped forward, her eyes welling up with tears, and wrapped her arms around me. Rosa, darling, why didn't you tell us? Her voice broke as she held me, her words almost a whisper. We were so worried about you. All these years and we didn't understand. I let her hold me, but I didn't say anything right away. She had no idea how much I'd needed to hear those words, how much I'd longed for them. But deep down, I knew it wasn't enough anymore. I wasn't doing this for their apologies, for their recognition. I had already come so far without them. Still hearing her words gave me something I hadn't realized I needed validation, but not the kind I thought I wanted. Would you have believed me if I'd told you? I asked softly, pulling away, just enough to meet her eyes. Or would you have found a way to diminish it, to call it a fluke, to say I just got lucky, I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. Tired of trying to fit into a mold that was never meant for me. She started to say something, but her words trailed off as if she knew what I meant. Ethan was standing a few feet away, now his hands shoved into the pockets of his blazer, his gaze fixed on the yacht. His jaw was clenched, his brow furrowed in disbelief. He wasn't looking at me like he had before, like I was a disappointment. There was something different now, something that made me believe that maybe, just maybe, he was starting to see me for the first time. Rosa, he said after a long pause, his voice barely above a murmur. I didn't know. I assumed. He stopped himself, and for once he didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he took a deep breath, his shoulders sagging just a little. You've done something incredible here. I didn't see it. I didn't believe in you the way I should have. I wanted to snap at him to tell him how much it hurt to be dismissed all these years. But I didn't. I just nodded my eyes, briefly catching his. It's not about your approval, Ethan. It never was. But I needed you to see me, really see me for once. Not as the black sheep. Not as the one who didn't fit in. But as someone who built something from the ground up. My father, who had been watching in silence until now, finally spoke. His voice was quieter than usual, but there was something in it that I hadn't heard before. Something almost humble. I always knew you were smart, Rosa. I just worried. I didn't understand this world you were trying to build. He paused as if reconsidering his next words. But it's clear now you've built it, on your own. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of pride and exhaustion. The years of being overlooked, of being dismissed, had left their mark on me. But this was different. This was the moment when everything changed, not just in the eyes of my family, but in my own eyes. So I said, turning toward the rest of the family, Are we going to take this cruise or not? I gestured toward the yacht with a slight grin. I've arranged everything. My team's ready, the crew's all set. It's your choice. The silence that followed was broken by a soft chuckle from Megan. She stepped forward, shaking her head in disbelief. Well, I'll be damned, she muttered. You really did it, didn't you? Then more loudly she added, We're not going anywhere without you, Maddie. We're family, right? I smiled genuinely this time. Yeah, family, right. As the family started to board the yacht, I couldn't help but reflect on everything that had led me here. The years of hard work, the sacrifices, the loneliness at family gatherings, when I felt like I didn't belong, none of it had been easy. But it had all led to this moment. And even if it wasn't a fairy tale ending with everyone suddenly accepting me, it felt damn close. I was ready for this. Ready to stop shrinking for them. Ready to show them that success didn't have to fit into their neat little boxes. As we set sail that afternoon with the sun setting behind us, I finally felt like I could breathe. I wasn't just the dreamer anymore. I was the one who had created something that mattered. And no one, not even my family, could take that away from me. I looked out over the ocean, the sound of the waves against the hull grounding me in the present. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Have you ever been underestimated by the people who were supposed to know you best? What did you do? Did you fight for their approval or walk your own path, regardless? If any part of my story resonated with you, I'd love to hear yours. Drop it in the comments. What's one moment where you proved someone wrong, or more importantly, proved something to yourself? If you found this story powerful, meaningful, or just damn satisfying, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that success doesn't have to follow the traditional path. Sometimes the best kind of success is the one nobody sees coming, the one you build while they're too busy underestimating you. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being here. And wherever you are right now, keep showing up for yourself. That's where real power begins.